Saint Agnes, Virgin, Martyr, 304, Rome. The lesson is taken from the book of St. Ambrose, Bishop of Milan. This is a virgin's birthday. Let us then follow the example of her chastity. It is a martyr's birthday. Let us then offer sacrifices. It is the birthday of the holy Agnes. Let men then be filled with wonder, little ones with hope, married women with awe, and the unmarried with emulation. But how shall I set forth the glory of her whose very name is an utterance of praise? It seemeth to me that this being, holy beyond her years, and strong beyond human nature, received the name of Agnes, not as an earthly designation, but as a revelation from God of what she was to be. For this name Agnes is from the Greek, and being interpreted, signifieth pure. So that this saintly maiden is known by the very title of chastity, and when I have added thereto the word martyr, I have said enough. She needeth not the praise which we could utter, but do not. None is more praiseworthy than she, for whose praise all mouths are fitted. As many as name her, so many praise her, by the noble title of martyr. We learn by tradition that this holy martyr testified in the 13th year of her age. We will pass by the foul cruelty which did not spare her tender years, to contemplate the great power of her faith, whereby she overcame the weakness of childhood, and witnessed a good confession. Her little body was hardly big enough to give play to the instruments of their cruelty, but if they could scarce sheathe their swords in her slight frame, they found in her that which laughed the power of the sword to scorn. She had no fear when she found herself grasped by the bloody hands of the executioners. She was unmoved when they dragged her with clanging chains. Hardly entered on life, she stood fully prepared to die. She quailed not when the weapons of the angry soldiery were pointed at her breast. If they forced her against her will to approach the altars of devils, she could stretch forth her hands to Christ amid the very flames which consumed the idolatrous offerings, and mark on the heathen shrine the victorious cross of the Lord. She was ready to submit her neck and hands to the iron shackles, but they were too big to clasp her slender limbs. Behold a strange martyr. She is not grown of stature to fight the battle, but she is ripe for the triumph. Too weak to run in the race, and yet clearly entitled to the prize. Unable from her age to be aught but a learner, she is found a teacher. She went to the place of execution a virgin, with more willing and joyful footsteps than she would have gone with to the nuptial chamber as a bride. The spectators were all in tears, and she alone did not weep. They beheld her with wonder, laying down that life of which she had hardly begun to taste the sweets, as freely as though she had drained it to the dregs and was weary of its burden. All men were amazed when they saw her whose years had not made her own mistress, arise as a witness for the deity. Consider how many threats her murderer used to excite her fears, how many arguments to shake her resolution, how many promises to bribe her to accept his offers of marriage. But she answered him, "It is an insult to him whom I have wedded to expect me to comply. He that first chose me, his will I be. Headsman, why waitest thou? Perish the body which draweth the admiration of eyes from which I would turn away." She stood, prayed, and then bent her neck for the stroke. Now mightest thou have seen the murderer trembling as though he himself were the criminal, the executioner's hand shake, and the faces of them that stood by turn white at the sight of her position, and all the while herself remain without fear. This one victim brought God a double offering, that of her purity, and that of her faith. She preserved virginity and achieved martyrdom. Amen. Benedicat vos omnipotens Deus, Pater, et Filius, et Spiritus Sanctus. Amen.